I need to have someone on the laptop, or else I can go on the laptop. Right? If you give me a hand microphone. The laptop has got my presentation. If you give me a hand microphone, I'll talk from there.
Oh, you have somebody.
Microphone portable. Est-ce qu'il y a un microphone portable?
She's coming, she's coming.
Ok. Derrière jusque-là.
I can use this, can't I?
It's too short.
No, it's long.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Right. Hang on. Yeah, I'm just Well, my talk to you is about, on the agenda, is about epidemiological studies that can be done. And I will do some talking about epidemiological studies that can be done. But I also want to split my talk into two. And the second part of it, I'm going to address something that really can be done. Because I have been invited to many meetings like this in the last 20 years. And we all end up agreeing that the situation is very bad, and we all agree that everyone is being poisoned, and there doesn't seem to be any change occurring in the people who continue to poison everybody. The nuclear industry continues to exist, and nobody seems to be able to stop it. So I have changed my direction of approach to one of attempting to determine some sort of strategy for stopping the nuclear industry. And I will present this to you today. And I want as many people of you in this audience to help me in this project. And particularly, I want to enroll the heads of NGOs. So if you have any organization, and I'm sure there are lots of people who are running organizations here in Europe, I want you to help me to bring down the nuclear industry. And there is a way in which we can do this through the application of, no, that's not the one. There's an actual presentation. This is the one I'm going to look for. On the front, it's called Geneva, Epi-Geneva. It's on the desktop, okay? So if you just shrink that down and get Epi-Geneva off the desktop, I'll put it there. It should be there. Someone's taken it off. Is that possible? Geneva, Epi-Geneva. Okay. These little technical things occur all the time. Aren't they great? Anyway, the point is that there are international rules or international agreements about human rights. And in Europe, there's the European Declaration of Human Rights. And within this is a question of human rights and the environment. Now, it turns out that in Europe, the control of exposure to radiation is defined by what's called the EURATOM Basic Safety Standards Directive, which was developed in 1996. And I was involved then in looking at this directive with some other scientists for the Greens in the European Parliament. And we advised the Greens to try and stop this directive being brought into European law, which in the end they couldn't do this. But they managed to include a little bomb inside this directive. And it was a clause under one of the articles of the directive that said that if any new scientific information should appear after the directive was taken into European law, then they would automatically have to re-justify all nuclear practices. So anything to do with nuclear radiation would have to be reassessed on the basis of this clause. This is terribly important because 1996 was a long time ago, and between 1996 and nowadays there have been hundreds of scientific papers that show that the basis of the Euratom Directive is incorrect, that the science underneath the Euratom Safety Standards Directive is no longer adequate. Hundreds of scientific papers which are being ignored, as everybody has said, which are being totally ignored by the IAEA, by the ICRP. The latest version of the ICRP risk model says nothing at all about Chernobyl, doesn't even mention it. The data from Chernobyl is completely ignored. But it cannot be ignored within the framework of the Euratom Basic Safety Standards Directive, because this is now European law, and there is a clause in the directive that requires re-justification if this new evidence becomes available. So there are two consequences of this, which I shall since I've started now, I'll do my talk later and I'll put this in and I'll tell you what we do now. The first thing is that every individual in Europe, as a member of a Europe state country, has the right to petition the European Parliament on any issue. Now they have a petitions committee that decides whether these petitions should be looked at or not. And so people can write in and they can say something quite trivial, like, you know, I petition that the European Parliament should, European Commission should give assistance to my cat who is very sick. But actually, if enough people send a petition to the Petitions Committee at the same time, then they have to do something about it. They have to do something about it because it's within European law. So this is a legal direction that we can all take. So I want every single person in this room and every single NGO that you know, and your uncles and your aunts and anybody else that you want to talk to be in touch with my colleague Dita Rietemar here. We'll give you some details of how to contact us. And all at the same time, we want to produce a tsunami in the Petitions Committee of the European Parliament. So thousands and thousands and thousands of petitions, all saying the same thing, which is that there should be a re-justification of the European laws relating to radiation protection, should hit them all at the same time and sweep them away in a global catastrophe for the nuclear industry. That's one. The second thing you can do, which I want you to do, is to write the same petition as a plea to the nuclear protection agencies of your countries. So in Sweden, we will go to the SSM, in Germany, the Bundestag for Strahlenschutz, and the IRSN in France, in England, the National Radiological Protection Board, and anybody else that you care to petition. And you demand, on the basis of the Euratom Directive, you demand that they reassess their radiation risk models because of the new information that's come out as a result of Chernobyl after 1996. And of course, they will say no. But that's good. But that's because we want them to say no. Because as soon as they say no, and I hope you're listening, we will go around them to the European Court of Human Rights. Now, in the European Court of Human Rights, we will be dealing with philosophers and judges, and not with physicists. And in any domain where we deal with philosophers and judges, we will win. There is no question. Because our cause is just, and because everything that we say is true, and because the logic is absolutely irrefutable. Okay. All right? Now I'm going to give my talk. I've got 5 minutes left. Well, that's worth it, actually, so I'm going to just rip through this.
That's not true. 12 minutes. I'm recording.
Aha, that's got you. We've got it on the numbers. This is data. This is data. And we can re-examine the data later in the court of law.
We lost some time.
With philosophers and
I'm
jurists.
sorry, we lost some time with the computer. It's not my fault. I'm sorry.
Okay, good.
Then we have even more. Then we have
We
more.
have 12 minutes.
No.
Right. Well, I can do this in 12 minutes. So can I do this now? If you leave it to me, I'll just do
I'm
this.
sorry, it's not 12 minutes, it's 5 minutes. Sorry.
5 minutes.
No, it's 12 minutes. You can see it on this count. 20 minutes to every speaker.
Well, I don't mind. I can do what Professor Yadlikov said. I can go mad. It's okay. No problem. No problem. I've made my main pitch, and if you want to know about epidemiology, there are lots of textbooks, you know, and you can also read my presentation, which will be on the website. Okay, the main point about this question is why epidemiology? Well, the reason we have to do epidemiology is that we cannot get the statistical data from the cancer registries because they keep it secret. Since 1991, the cancer registries in Europe have said that they are not going to give any data out on cancer rates in small areas near nuclear power stations. And so we are on a spaceship flying through space with no instruments that tell us whether people are getting sick or not. Because all of the instruments that tell us whether people are getting sick from cancer or not, which is caused by radiation, are all covered over with silver paper. They don't allow us to see the data. So the point is we can do our own epidemiological studies, and that's basically what I'm talking about here. In 1991, there was a big war in Iraq, and after that, when a lot of uranium weapons were used, lots of people started to get cancer, lots of people started to die, children were born with congenital malformations, but it wasn't until 2010 that anybody did any epidemiology, because none of the authorities would allow any of the data out, and nobody would do any of the epidemiological studies. Now, the punchline here, since I don't want to upset the chair, is that it's not difficult to do these studies. These studies are, everybody is told that they can't do these studies because they're not really epidemiologists. But actually this isn't true. Anybody can do these studies. You go and you knock on doors and you ask people how many people there have got cancer. And in fact, one of the first studies that was done in epidemiology by the father of epidemiology, John Snow, was done in exactly that way. He went around London knocking on doors and said how many people had cholera, and he was able to establish that the cause of cholera was a particular contaminated water supply. And he was not an epidemiologist because at that time it didn't exist. Of course, nobody believed him, and he died quite young. But now we know that he was the beginning of the science of epidemiology. There are various types of citizen studies, and I'll show you the results of some of the ones that we've done. We looked at breast cancer mortality in wards near a nuclear power station in Essex, and you can see here that the high levels of breast cancer are close to the nuclear power station and close to the mud, which is contaminated by the releases from the nuclear power station. And here's another study that I did with people in the Irish Republican Army in Northern Ireland, and that was about contamination of the coasts near Carlingford, which is a town on the coast on the Irish Sea, contaminated by Sellafield. So a lot of the material from Sellafield gets into the mud, and those red circles are individual cases of cancer, and you can see that the cancer rates are all very close to the sea where the mud is contaminated. And then this graph in the bottom corner, you can see how the rates fall down as you go away from the sea, and those are distances in meters, incidentally. And these are caused by the sea spray producing the particles of radioactivity, mostly plutonium, I have to say, in the air, and then it gets inhaled. And these sorts of studies are done merely by knocking on doors and asking people questions. We've done about 6 or 7 questionnaire studies, and this talk of mine shows you exactly how to do all of this. It's really very simple. You have to ask how many people live there and what their ages are and so forth, and you put all this down and you do a little bit of simple arithmetic, and eventually you come out with the results that tells you whether the cancer is greater or less than it should be. And one of the most famous ones that I did was the one of a nuclear power station in Wales, which was done with a TV company. And it was the TV people who knocked on doors, and they went around with a camera interviewing the people that they talked to. And this shows you the age breakdown of the population that they talked to. And here's the nuclear power station, there's a circle there. And the town that we're talking about was at Llanfestiniog, which is up in the top right-hand corner there. And we got huge increases in cancer in those people who were downwind. So what I need to say to conclude is that you can do these things yourself, or at least, and particularly in Japan, what I suggest is that around Fukushima, that they very much certainly do these things themselves, because otherwise they're never going to find out what's going on. And I have actually translated the Fukushima questionnaire into Japanese. so that this questionnaire is available in Japanese, and I would hope that some groups in Japan use this to find out what the levels of cancer are there. And although I invented this method in '99, it was reinvented by some people in an epidemiological journal. And then, of course, when you find these things, you can go straight to the media, who are always very interested, and they will always publish what you find. Okay, you need a few computer programs, and there are various other types of studies that you can carry out. Now, if anybody wants to do these studies or wants to know more about this type of approach, then contact Green Audit, contact myself or Ditto over there, and we will help you as much as we can. We know how to do it, and we can easily pass that knowledge on. If you don't require a degree in mathematics, all you require is a little bit of nerve and a decision to do it. And remember, we are at the center of our world, and if we want to know what is happening, we have to look out of the window and think for ourselves. And that's my daughter, who's now 18, actually. So thank you very much for listening. One more thing. If you, the European Committee on Radiation Risk, who I represent as scientific secretary, have developed a risk model which will tell you how many people will die following any exposure from various diseases, certainly from cancer. And this has been shown to be the case by a study in Sweden of the effects of Chernobyl, where this risk model predicted exactly what they found. And what it shows is that the risk model of the ICRP is wrong by a factor of approximately 400 times. So if the ICRP risk model says that you're going to get one cancer after a certain exposure, that is to say in a particular population, actually you'll get 400. And you need this, and it might sound insane, but you need this kind of level in order to explain the results, the epidemiological results. But if we want to know what's happening, we have to look at epidemiology. And as far as Fukushima is concerned, there's this other book here, so some of these copies of both of these books are out there for sale if anybody wants them. Thank you.
Merci, Chris. Je donne la parole à Michel Fernet, je ne sais pas s'il faut le présenter, le professeur Michel Fernet, qui s'est beaucoup occupé du dossier Tchernobyl.
You talked only 13 minutes.
Qui va faire un petit exposé intitulé « Le temps perdu ».